Senzu super chatted $6.17. Love the content, Luke. Have you seen the Digital Foundry podcast where they talk about the whole Redfall 30 FPS situation?
I have actually, and I actually had it pulled up because I wasn't sure if it was going to come up or not. But that's a very good thing to mention, because they did have some interesting things to say.
At some point, there's been no idea of how long we're going to be waiting for that. It's fair to say that the reaction online from both Xbox diehards and casual gamers has been less than stellar, less than positive. Going to go to you first of all for your thoughts on.
The question with all of this, though, is whether or not it's actually going to matter. Because somebody mentioned on stream, maybe I think it was Friday, somebody said, "Oh well, Luke, there was like a survey apparently that somebody did." Allegedly, that showed that while people might say online, like in surveys and polls and stuff, that they really are not okay with 30 FPS, in terms of actual purchasing behavior, almost all of those people still buy the games. So, or play the games in the case of Game Pass titles. So it could very well be the case that this is one of those issues that it's like the HBO guys said about the whole like Hogwarts, or they're relaunching Harry Potter on HBO as a TV show, and somebody said, are you concerned about the J.K. Rowling scandals? And the CEO or president or somebody of HBO said, no, we're very convinced at this point that it's a very online discussion, which was basically their way of saying the whole like J.K. Rowling needs to be canceled and you can't touch anything she touches. That whole thing was an online scandal. It's not real life. And that could be the same sort of attitude that a lot of people have towards the 30 FPS thing, where they make a big hullabaloo about it on surveys and in comment sections and stuff. But when the crap hits the fan, they end up playing the game anyways. That could be the case. Could be the case that it doesn't actually matter to a lot of people. It could also be the case that people honestly are like, they're looking at the installs. It's the day of launch for Redfall, and they're on their Series X, and they say to themselves, I could play Redfall, but I'm not going to because it runs at 30. Maybe that happens. I'm more of the mind that I would expect it to be a little bit overblown, a little bit exaggerated. I think a lot of people that are freaking out about this are still going to play it. A lot of the very vocal voices also, you need to remember, you have no way of distinguishing between like diehard Sony ponies who are making a big deal of this because it makes their console look better. Because frankly, it does. Their games launching with 60 FPS modes and Xbox not makes PlayStation look better. So for diehard fanboys and girls, that helps their argument. So of course they're going to double down on it and talk about it. But I'm not convinced at this point that this is like that huge of a scandal. I think it's a problem. I think they should launch with a 60 FPS performance mode. But I don't think it's going to like seriously harm the performance of the game in terms of like actual player numbers. I think the game will stand or fall on its own. Either the game will be really good despite being at 30 FPS on console, or it'll be really bad and also only run at 30 FPS on console. I don't think it's going to be this like, the game's good, but the 30 FPS makes it unplayable. Like, come on, dude.
This one, Oliver, it's not a good look for a major first-party exclusive in a world where we've not really had so many of them.
No, it feels a bit ominous to me, especially seeing as all the preview material that we saw for this game was at 60 FPS, stretching all the way back to the game's gameplay reveal and the Microsoft Summer 2022 showcase, and of course earlier this year that Microsoft Direct showcase.
And that's a really good point that I hadn't thought about. All of the gameplay that they've shown off for Redfall is at 60 FPS, probably running on PC, almost certainly running on PC. But then they're going to be coming out and launching it at 30. I know some people are like, well, but you know, of course you're going to show it on PC because it's a PC game and it's on PC, so you want to make it look the best. And I totally understand that. However, it's also like an Xbox exclusive. So you'd think they would at least try to give you an idea of what it runs like on Xbox. Right? But I don't know, maybe not.
And all the footage so far that I've seen has showcased like screen space artifacts, which makes me think, yeah, that is a realistic target for console platforms. And Microsoft has also done a really good job, I think, with their first-party efforts of showing off footage that's probably in the ballpark for console footage, even though it's being demoed on PC, like with Forza Motorsport last year. I know Alex spotted some reconstruction artifacts in that, and with Starfield, they've been showing it off pretty much at 30. They've been showing a little bit of 60, but mostly at 30. So it's a little bit of a weird situation, and I can't help but be a little bit concerned, just because my feeling, I don't know if this is your feeling as well, but my feeling is the game probably was targeting 60 FPS on consoles, at least as an option, until probably relatively recently. So makes me a little bit concerned about the game, but hopefully it's all good.
Yeah, I mean,
and they're about to get into details of the dev process, because there's some reason to believe that that this is maybe an artifact of like Unreal Engine and how they convert all of this over.
The footage that we've seen, as you said, has all been 60 frames per second, pretty much locked. Previews have all been carried out on PC. Indeed, on the Xbox Store page for the game, up until recently, it was being advertised / marketed as a 60 frames per second game.
And I think that matters, because again, they have to add these settings. Maybe it's just that the marketing guys were like so certain, oh yeah, no, it's totally going to run at 60. Why wouldn't it? And maybe they just honestly didn't think about it that much. But this is a problem. Like they were pitching the game as 60, they showed it at 60, and now they're coming back and being like, actually, it's only going to run at 30. That makes me think that they ran into some development issues.
Fundamentally, in the year of our Lord 2023, the concept of a current generation shooter launching without 60 frames per second, concept of a current
Is that an eye roll? Is that an eye roll? Watch this.
Shooter launching without 60 frames per second support makes it very much an outlier, and the question is, why this is happening, and we can only really speculate at this point. Yeah. So Alex, I'm curious about your thoughts on this. I mean, every time we've spoken to a developer about how they create a console game that's targeting 60 frames per second, it's all about very stringent budgets, targeting 60 frames per second from the get-go. And yet here we are a couple of months from launch, and
rivalry in the office. I think what it is that he I think that was like an eye tick. Nikki sometimes is like, why did you just roll your eyes? Like, I didn't think I did. But I think what it is like when my eyes get tired, I kind of do what he just did, like kind of stress my eyes and kind of they strain in a certain way, and it makes it look like I'm rolling my eyes when I'm just like, oh, like my eyes are sore, that kind of thing. So I think that's what that was. I don't think he was like, oh my God, here my boss goes again. Yeah, I don't think it was like that. Did anyone notice difference between 60 and 120? I'm just curious. Oh, you mean like in games? Can you notice? Like, does anybody notice? Oh, hell yeah. No, I swap out monitors because 144 FPS feels choppy to me after getting used to 240. So yeah, you can totally tell the difference. As to like whether it actually matters in gameplay, probably not for most people, but still, you can totally tell the difference. But
well, to suddenly see this whole experience pared back just to a 30 FPS quality mode, it's kind of baffling.
Oh yeah, basically, yeah, everybody was like, oh, they're only running it at 30 FPS. Probably something happened during development that made them pull it back. Blah blah blah.
Right.
Specifically in regards to Unreal Engine 4, which
here
people about this before. Specifically in regards to Unreal Engine 4, which this title is using. And they've said in the past that a lot of things in the middle of the production process that are inefficiently running through Blueprint, for example, will then later on...
Overview Visual Blueprint. Oh yeah, I think I've seen some tutorials using this. It's basically like... it's like a very approachable scripting tool that you can use for like implementing different code into your game and stuff, but it's not always the most efficient. So when you get closer to launch, you have to redo stuff that's in here, and that causes all sorts of issues sometimes, but you don't realize it's going to be an issue because it happens so close to launch. When you start to realize, okay, well, maybe we need to rework some of this
on the process, be brought into more performant code. This is something that was that I heard behind the scenes is that partially happened on Gotham Knight, is that like they brought back some performance by moving things from blueprint into more performant code. And this usually happens towards the end of a product, like before shipping, and it's one of the last hurdles to get that CPU performance up. In this case, the fact that we were seeing 60 FPS footage beforehand, which was obviously running on PC, combined with the fact that they're saying they're going to bring out a 60 FPS mode later, gives me the feeling that this was maybe part of the production process and they actually did have a plan and it was going to be targeting and running at 60 FPS at some launch date. But then the launch date is actually not attainable to do that in the time frame, and they're pushing it out essentially early. It's not necessarily ready, and that's what it comes off to me like.
And this is, I think, the main thrust of this whole thing. People have the feeling like Redfall's being pushed out early because in 2023, the expectation is that a game launches with 30 and 60 as options, or just 60. But at the very least, 60 should be an option. And so to have a game that only launches at 30, it just feels as though, especially when you admit that you're bringing 60 later, it feels as though you are rushing it out and it wasn't ready. So it's I think a tactical blunder in terms of perception for Microsoft to allow this. I think they should probably just delay it for the sake of like optics, but I understand they want to just get the game out. And if that is true, that they do have surveys and stuff they've done where they've tested it and it's clear that most of the gamers they're looking at are going to play it regardless, then maybe this whole thing is a nothing burger. That's possible. We're talking about it because we are in gaming day in, day out. But for a lot of people who are a little bit more casual with it, are a little more relaxed, they're just going to see Redfall pop up on Game Pass day one and be like, ooh, the new game from Arcane, the guys that did Deathloop and Prey and Dishonored, they just released a game and it's on Game Pass. I don't have to pay for it. I'm just going to download it. Boom. Sometimes that's all that really matters at the end of the day is player engagement. And so it might just be that Microsoft is like, yeah, we're going to release it only at 30 on launch. We understand some people are going to be really upset about that, but according to our numbers, the vast majority of people don't care. And so we'll see. I mean, I guess the numbers will bear it out, but if Microsoft really thought it was going to affect the reception and the player numbers and the success of the game, they would delay it. And so if they don't delay it, then they're not worried about it for whatever reason. Maybe their numbers are bad. Maybe like the whole survey that they did that makes them think it won't be an issue is incorrect or based on faulty premises or something. But clearly they're not that worried about it. So they either know something we don't, or they think they know something we don't. So we'll see. Casuals are the determiner because there's so much of that audience. I think so. And honestly, like, I know this might trigger us. It triggers me. I know for a fact that many casual gamers can't even put to words the difference between 30 and 60 FPS. When I went to see Avatar, of course I was there with Nikki. And then I talked with other family members after the movie because we went over and had dinner after we saw it. And all of the family members, none of them are techie. They're all like blue collar workers. They're not like playing video games when they get home from work. And Nikki, they could not tell that frame rates were changing. I was like, oh man, I was about to like have a stroke at all the constant frame rate changes where they came in and they like did the 60 FPS and then they swap randomly to 24 or 30, whatever it was. Either they swap between 24 and 48 or between 30 and 60. I don't know what they did in the movie, but they swap and double the frame rate randomly through the film. And it's super distracting for me. I hated that they did it. I would rather just have 30 or just have 60. I couldn't stand it. It almost like pissed me off. But all of those are the people I talked to. The family members who had already seen the film, they're like, oh, I didn't realize they did that. Really? I thought some parts of the movie looked really smooth, but I didn't realize that they were like doubling that. That's crazy. What is frame rate? Yeah, and it's just a lot of people, they don't notice. So for us, we can be like, oh no, 60 is what we expect. And that's true for us that are a little more into this. But for, I think, the vast majority of casual gamers who make up the vast majority of gamers, they don't really care.